Please, Max, you don't have to...
Dr. Ashley Kafka's life journey was a blend of compassion and tragedy. Her path led her through the corridors of psychology and into the frightening Ravencroft Institute. Known for her remarkable work with superpowered criminals, she faced both success and failure, ultimately meeting a tragic end at the hands of one of her patients. However, her story didn't end there. It continued through shocking revelations of clones, manipulations, and an unexpected transformation into Queen Goblin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Ashley Kafka? Dr. Ashley Kafka was born and raised by her mother in New York City, along her sister, Norma Kafka, who was born with facial defects and was also mentally challenged. Her mother died when Kafka was just 19 years old, following which her sister was institutionalized and died soon after. Ashley ended up studying psychology at the Empire State University. Kafka showed great skills in treating criminals with superpowers with her psychiatric methods and was hired by the U.S. government to run the Ravencroft Institute. Vermin, a man turned into a monster, was one of Kafka's first patients, followed which she worked with many of Spider-Man's well-known enemies like Electro, Vulture, Chameleon, and Dr. Octopus. However, she failed to rehabilitate patients like Carnage and Carrion. One of the patients at Ravencroft Massacre, the serial killer, ended up murdering her in order to use one of her eyes to get past the retinal scanner. Ben Reilly, a clone of Peter Parker, under the identity of the New Jackal, brought to life a clone of Ashley Kafka, along with many of Spider-Man's allies, in order to make the web-slinging hero cooperate with him. This clone of Kafka would eventually die due to clone degeneration. Following this, Norman Osborn would discover a second clone of Ashley Kafka, who he manipulated into believing that she's the real one. Ashley Kafka's shocking clone saga. Ashley Kafka's second clone was found by Norman Osborn in an old laboratory of Professor Miles Warren. Knowing about J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson's feelings for Kafka, Norman made her believe that she is not a clone and made her return to Ravencroft Institute to manipulate John in order for him to retransform into Manwolf and be made into an asset for Janus, an organization that helped Norman in recovering his privilege and wealth. Dr. Carl Malice, an accomplice of Norman, ran tests on Kafka in order to make John believe that she is real. Norman's plan ended up being successful, and Kafka's second clone took on the role of new chief scientist at the Ravencroft Institute. During the attack at Ravencroft Institute by Sin Eater and his followers, to reach Norman, Dr. Kafka was manipulated into leaving the Institute's panic room by a security guard, who was also corrupted by the touch of Sin Eater. Sin Eater would then go on to corrupt Dr. Kafka as well, in order to gain access into Juggernaut's cell, allowing him to absorb the powers as well as sins of the avatar of Sidorak, something he had done with Mr. Negative and many other supervillains. Dr. Kafka and other staff members would then rescue Norman Osborn from under the ruins of a secret sublevel at the Institute, also being cleansed by Sin Eater. Guilt-ridden and requesting to not being handed over to the authorities, Norman would confess all his crimes to Dr. Kafka. He would also reveal that he believes Kindred to be his son, Harry Osborn, and want to prevent him from further spiraling down in the path of vengeance. Dr. Kafka would suggest he get help from someone close to Harry, who he would actually listen to, leading Norman to Mary Jane Watson, who would reveal that she has Harry alive. Ashley Kafka's astonishing transformation into Queen Goblin. Dr. Kafka would be hired by the superhero development divisions of the Beyond Corporation to help rehabilitate Ben Reilly, her creator. Upon accepting the offer, she stopped the conducting of Beyond Corp's memo surgeries on Ben right away, as they would cause Ben to lose memories from his formative years, and also negotiated to gain complete control over her work with Ben, due to which Beyond Corp would neither interfere or keep track of her work. Kafka would hold sessions with Ben whenever he would return from his missions of working as Spider-Man, helping him to recover his lost memories with the help of a special device. Ben would go on to find out about Beyond Corp being involved with supervillains during a battle with Dr. Octopus. He would pass on the information to Dr. Kafka, not knowing that they were being monitored by Maxine Danger, the head of the superhero development divisions. The session was subsequently interrupted by Beyond Corp, following which Ben was taken away to have his memories erased. Dr. Kafka, not cooperating with Beyond Corp, would be punished by being forced to bond with Norman Osborn's sins, turning into what Maxine would call Queen Goblin. Queen Goblin was then provided with tech and was ordered to stop Janine Godby, Ben's girlfriend, from causing a public show of a data drive that holds information about all of Beyond Corp's dark secrets. Queen Goblin would go on to attack Janine and her ally, Mary Jane Watson, at the Daily Bugle building. Queen Goblin would be successful in her mission, with Janine being rescued by Ben and running off with her. Black Cat would come to the rescue of Mary Jane, but ended up falling victim to Queen Goblin's hypnotic gaze, which forced her to jump to her death. The original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, would arrive to save Black Cat and would also end up defeating Queen Goblin, fighting off her hypnotic gaze. Queen Goblin's glider would then be controlled by Beyond Corp to take her unconscious body away from Spider-Man. Queen Goblin, on gaining consciousness, would run away and take shelter in an abandoned building. Being corrupted with Norman Osborn's sins, Queen Goblin failed to remember her true identity and decided to go after Norman Osborn herself. Queen Goblin's ghostly quest on Norman Osborn. Queen Goblin would go on to manipulate events that would lead to Roderick Kingsley returning as the supervillain Hobgoblin, and uses him to also brainwash Ned Leeds, the original Hobgoblin. Spider-Man managed to save Ned, with Queen Goblin being okay with only having Roderick under her power. She would also manipulate Owen Ward into returning to taking over his supervillain persona of Jack-O-Lantern in order for him to threaten Norman Osborn, who now has taken on a new hero identity of Gold Goblin. Hell-bent on getting rid of the sins, Queen Goblin attacked Norman in his secret shelter, only to realize that she has become one with the sins, due to which it cannot be returned to Norman. Norman would manage to escape and find Spider-Man. During that time, Queen Goblin dealt with Norman's guilt, taking the shape of Gwen Stacy in her mind. She would also try to publicly disgrace Norman and out him as an irredeemable madman, using her Dr. Fromm alias, but would be confronted by both Gold Goblin and Spider-Man. Transforming into Queen Goblin, she would try to pass on the sins to Spider-Man, but would be killed by the Gold Goblin, who ended up breaking her neck using her own chains. She would then come back to life while an autopsy was being conducted on her body. Queen Goblin would then go on to form an alliance with the last son of Kraven the Hunter, injecting his spear with Norman Osborn's sins in order for Norman to turn back into Green Goblin, and then Kraven killing, proving him to be better than his father. However, due to Spider-Man interfering, Kraven would end up fusing himself with Norman Osborn's sins. Kraven then went on a rampage against everyone who had wronged him, including his father, who he ended up burying alive in a similar fashion to what his father had done to him. Queen Goblin then arrived to help him in his hunt. Exploring her captivating presence in other media, Ashley Kafka made her first animated appearance in the 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series, being a bit more faithful to her origin. She is a therapist at Ravencroft and also love interest for one of her patients, Eddie Brock. Another animated adaptation of her was featured in the Spectacular Spider-Man series, where instead of just being a therapist, she was also the founder of Ravencroft's Institute and treated some of Spider-Man's superpowered villains like Dr. Octopus and Electro. David S. Gower's 1997 draft of the Venom movie had also featured a character named Rachel Kafka as a love interest for the main character, Eddie Brock. Ashley Kafka made a gender-bent live-action debut in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie. She is a German doctor and also a leading staff member at the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, which is ran under the control of Oscorp Industries. Dr. Kafka ran inhumane experiments on Electro until the villain was released by Harry Osborn, who snuck into Ravencroft. Upon being released, Electro went on to torture Kafka in a similar fashion to how Kafka tortured Electro. Marvelous verdict. Despite her death, Ashley Kafka's journey carried on in unexpected ways, from the shocking appearance of her clones manipulated by Norman Osborn to her transformation into Queen Goblin. Her presence remained intertwined with the chaotic world of superheroes and villains. Her character resonated, depicting a tale of compassion, manipulation, and a haunting legacy that continued to shape the webs of Spider-Man's universe. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.